What's up, guys and gals? Welcome back to the Nerdcastle for the next episode in our Q&A series where you and I hang out for a little while. Just talk about life and stuff and questions. I don't even know if it's vaguely helpful most of the time, but I don't know. It's weirdly therapeutic for me, and it's one of the things I enjoy doing at the end of the week. And I have got complaints. That's the funny part, is a lot of people really don't like these videos. People seem to, I don't know, they're like, nobody cares what you think. Play more video games, crack more jokes, fart jokes, bring them. And that's cool. I get it, but I don't know. This is like a cool series for me. It's a series that I enjoy doing, and so I'm going to keep doing it. And so I have gone through the videos, and I have selected more comments to answer and just like talk about over the next little bit. If you've never seen Q&A before, it's you and me hanging out, and we just talk about topics that my fan base or my viewers or whatever, they throw out there in the comments down below the video. And so we're going to chill out for a little bit and do that. I got a big selection. It's a little bit of a laid-back day today. A little bit hungover. Probably going to be fine. Either way, if I seem like I'm a little bit more low-key, just be aware that so much wine. There's so much wine and liquor. Anyways, let's get started, shall we? Blake Lumen asks, Splattercat, do you have any tips if you're going to start PC gaming, and what type of PC would you suggest for your first PC? You know, honestly, if you don't know anything about building computers, it's pretty simple. It's not actually that hard. It's really easy to put like a basic build together, and I'm sure you can find dozens of guides online that'll teach you how to do it very, very easily. They'll teach you the basic rules for building and what you want to watch out for. On top of that, if you can have somebody walk you through it the first time, that's how I learned. And after somebody showed me how to build one the first time, I was like, good from there on in. It's a very, very simple process. And basically all you need, you don't really need a case, I guess, if you just wanted to build it on your desk and just have a pile of parts. I had a friend that did that for a while. You're going to need a power supply, you're going to need a motherboard, CPU, you're going to need a graphics card. You're going to need memory, you're going to need a hard drive or a solid state drive, whatever you want to use. Solid state drive and a hard drive would be pretty cool. Maybe a disk drive or like a Blu-ray drive if you want to get that going, but that's pretty much like all you need for a basic PC build. But it's going to be up to you or somebody that you know to pick out the parts that you want to make the performance better and get it to the point where it's inside your budget and then also inside the requirements of the performance that you want to get out of it. I wouldn't say that it would be too terrible to build a pretty solid budget PC off $800 to $1,000. You can make a pretty banging budget PC for $800 to $1,000. If you wanted to go above that, the sky's the limits. I mean, just kind of depends on what your bankroll is like. But I'd recommend you find some place or somebody to teach you how to build it first. Definitely don't fry your parts with, you know, static electricity or anything like that if you've never done it before. But it's easy. Once you've done it the first time, it's not that bad. Kutetsu Steel asks, hey, Splattercat, what lore, storyline, characters, and or gameplay mechanics would your perfect game contain? You know, honestly, I function best outside the constraints of a narrative. Like, I don't even really care about a narrative. That's just like a thing that holds me down and forces me to go do stuff that I don't want to do. I love sandbox gaming. I really sincerely love sandbox gaming. Things like RimWorld or like Planet Base or things like Skyrim where there's an optional narrative or you can just run around the world doing whatever the hell you want. Essentially, I like games that don't constrain me and they just let me do whatever the hell I want. I like it when they just put a world there to experience, enjoy, and run around in. And that's what I mean, I really get addicted to sandbox games the most, I think, by comparison to most others. I think of narratives as being constricting because the second you put in a hard narrative, it limits what you can do with the sandbox world. And so I think that Skyrim got pretty close. I think that Elder Scrolls has got it about right when it comes to the sandbox elements versus like the narrative elements. You can take them or leave them if you want. I mean, I've played hundreds of hours and I've never even beaten Skyrim. I made it like halfway through the storyline and I just dick around with side stuff all the time and work on little upgrades or collections and things like that, self-imposed goals, stuff like that. And so I could function without a narrative and without a storyline and without lore entirely. I think that if you can fit those things into the world without constraining the sandbox environment, go ahead and do it. The more the merrier, the thicker the icing, the better the cake. However, I mean, a perfect game to me would just be a sandbox with well-defined mechanics that keep the player moving around, things like Minecraft and stuff like that. Very interesting stuff, the way you can play that basically endlessly because it has nothing to constrain you with. Your only limit is your imagination. I like things like that. NemFX asks, in case you didn't catch my messages, I love Shadowrun games and I love Soma too. This question is long, but I have next-door neighbors and they're in an abusive relationship since they moved here. Specifically, the guy is abusive to the girl. He got hauled off to jail a month ago and came back today. I tried calling to warn her so that she wouldn't be blindsided. Her number was disconnected, so I left a message with her sister. But her sister is on his side, so she let him find out about it, but not her own sister. He now sent me a hostile phone call not long afterwards. The question is, in the same situation, how would you have handled it? For my own validation, I thought about the Roosevelt quote, the best thing you can do is the right thing, the second best thing is to do the wrong thing, and the worst thing is to do nothing. Well, I agree. I think that if there's an abusive situation going on, and you're aware of it, you do have a moral responsibility to take care of it. Now that you can see the look on my face right now, I feel tired for you already, because I already know when you get involved with other people's business, when you stick your nose in places, it does get cut off, especially if you live in a neighborhood where people get hella rowdy. And so my advice would be just report it to the authorities. You know, there are tons of government agencies that handle these sorts of things. Obviously, they took the guy to jail already, and so I'd be willing to bet that if he's out of jail, he's probably on some kind of like PO probation type deal, and you know, violence against a spouse or violence against a girlfriend, definitely enough to land him back inside the clink. I just pass it off to the authorities and just be like, listen, man, you guys got to do something about this. They're over there yelling. There's hitting going on. I'm worried she's going to end up wounded or killed. I mean, honestly, how bad would I feel if something bad happened to her and I knew that I could have reported it? That's the big thing. In general, if you want to take it further than that and you want to get involved, you just got to be aware that it could get violent, it could get rowdy, and it could be a situation that could have negative outcomes on your life, both in terms of like you could wind up in jail, you could wind up in all kinds of situations if it's blown out of proportion, you end up going to hands with the guy or whatever else. See if there's a way that you can handle this peaceably without a huge amount of blowback on your end. And if that's not the case, then I mean, you're gonna have to talk to the guy and just be like, listen, man, don't put hands on her. I'm aware of what you're doing right now, and I'm not okay with it, and I'm gonna run this down. I'm gonna hound dog this situation until it goes away. But I would say go to the authorities first. Don't get physical about it. Keep the voicemail. Don't be that guy going to banging on the door talking about how you're going to mash his teeth in his shit. Just try and do it the right way first, and then after that, adapt to whatever happens. Raxaphion asks, hey, Splattercat, I'm a father of two and have been starting to play games recently with them. What are your thoughts about parenting in relation to gaming? Sorry for my poor grammar, not my native. Don't worry about it. I got your point across. It sounded great. So, I don't know. I think that, so first and foremost, my parents were very negative about gaming. My parents did not want me to be a gamer because I grew up kind of late 80s, early 90s, mid 90s, where gaming was still considered to be one of those nerdy idiosyncrasies that some people had, and the general population hadn't accepted it as like a thing, like books or like television or like whatever else. It was not a subculture that was acceptable yet. It was thought to be the sort of thing that, you know, geeky guys that don't join the track team, hang out in their basement all day do. And so my parents, both of whom were, you know, popular and sort of athletic in high school and things like that, they saw it as me signing up for a life of getting picked on. And so they very much tried to put me on sports teams and get me away from gaming. I love athletics. I think that lifting weights and baseball and football and, you know, I love athletics. I watch them on TV. I played them for a big portion of my life. And that was on top of being a gamer. And so the question is, how much do your kids enjoy gaming? If it's just like a bonding time, hey, I think that gaming with kids is fantastic. I mean, some of my memories are me sitting around. My parents played a lot of games, but they worried that I played a lot of games. And so some of my earliest memories are me sitting around playing Battle Tanks with my dad on the Atari 2600. I remember playing two-player Mario Brothers with my mom in the afternoon and stuff after school. Some warm memories right there that you can actually forge out with your kids. Some very cool bonding experiences. And if they get into gaming and gaming becomes something important to them, I would say not to dissuade them unless it's negatively affecting the rest of their life. Now, as with all things, there can be addiction issues and stuff like that. I had addiction issues with MMOs, but I don't think that's going to be the case. Most kids just want to play with you more than play the game, anything else, especially when they're younger. So I think it's a very healthy thing. If they end up liking gaming and it becomes one of their passions in life, do your best to, you know, get out of the way and let them enjoy it. Don't be like my parents were, where they were constantly just like taking Nintendos and things away, being like, no, you do this too much. And that just made me want it even more. And you know, later on in life, I ended up doing this for a living, which is all kinds of weird because this didn't exist. It's not like I got into gaming with the intent of being on YouTube and being a YouTube gamer. It just sort of happened. I was going to play games, you know, all day, every day, outside of work, regardless. And so anyways, just be aware that nowadays there are a lot of cool, interesting things that can happen if your kids get into gaming. Like, it's a real genre now that people can be a part of. And so, you know, encourage them and try to cultivate the fact that they enjoy a thing. But for right now, when they're young, just enjoy spending time with them. Every time spent with your child is constructive. I see kids all the time who their parents didn't do jack shit with them when they were kids. And, you know, it messes them up later on in life. So I think it's great that you have that bonding experience with them. I think that gaming can definitely be a good footbridge for a parent and child to connect through. Game Night asks, hey, I love your videos. Keep them up. Oh, thank you for the kind words. Oh, you gave me a little smiley right there, too, with a capital D. Let's see here. I have two questions for you. First and foremost, do you watch The Walking Dead or Supernatural? I watch both, actually. I haven't watched Supernatural in a long time. I watched it a couple of years ago all the way through. Just haven't gone back and watched it again. The Walking Dead I like very much, too, although I think, I don't know, right about the time when they get on the other end with, like, the governor and all that sort of stuff, I fall off because the drama gets too thick, and I'm just like, ugh. Just shoot him and get it over with. Just, bah! Fix the problem. Just get it done. But anyways, I like both series. I like them. I think they're good. Also, do you test games for newbie indie game makers? No, I try not to be involved in the development process of independent game designers. that's kind of like a slippery slope that you get into because there's going to be the expectation of like reciprocation and stuff like that. I'm very careful with the way that I interact with game developers. I try to keep a barrier in between me and developers as best as possible. I sincerely think that you can get yourself into trouble if you start getting into bed with the developers and start doing part of their job for them. Like, that's their job, this is my job, and I'm more than willing to showcase a game or whatever if the game is good, but, you know, game development's on their side. I don't know anything about game development. I probably make a terrible game. I'm not an original person. I'm kind of like the moon. I just reflect light back. And so anyways, I'm not good when it comes to creativity. I'm really, really good at adaptation and taking ideas and sort of like streamlining them a little bit, but I'm not good at coming up with my own ideas, so it's just something that I don't think I'd be good at. But in general, I try to keep a barrier in between me and game developers anyways as best as possible. Equinox Prime asks, would you consider doing a 40k lore series, and if so, what would be the main races that you would cover? There is, in fact, and so if you look at my Patreon, that's one of the goals, is that if it gets to a certain level, I was going to do a full-on, I don't know if I would start a new channel or how I would do it, but I would do a full-on series called Lorehammer 40k, where we sit and we just talk about, and I try to infuse some humor into the world. I would probably start with the favorite races. I think that's probably the best place to go. It's no secret that Games Workshop likes the human races better than all the other ones, starting with the Space Marines, and then off to, you know, Imperial Guard, and then after that, Chaos. They very much try to stick with sort of the bipedal humanoid races that can be... Well, I think it comes down to profits with Games Workshop, too. I think that they sell what is profitable, and people like Space Marines, and they like Imperial Guard. And so I'd probably start with Imperial Guard, because when trying to relate with the world, they're going to be the everyman. I would start from there, and then I would go into Space Marines, and then after I got done with all those and I flesh out sort of the Imperium, I've always felt like 40k is very much written from the perspective of the Imperium, and so it makes it easier to relate information if you start with the foundation, which is the Imperium. Like, they totally favor the Imperium, Games Workshop does, and so they have the most lore, they have the biggest foundation, and from there you reach out into the other races and bring them on in. Obviously, I would probably personally want to favor orcs pretty heavily because I like them a lot. But yeah, I have considered doing a series. It's one of the backer goals for my Patreon campaign. William Rost. Any advice for somebody trying to hold down a job, school, girlfriend, a car on the way, volunteer fire service? I'm at my wit's end right now, and I could use some kind of advice from somebody more experienced than I. I'm sure the others that watch you with lots of responsibility could use the advice too. Well, I think you and I are kind of in the same boat right now. I don't think that I'm more experienced in this situation because I really think that, you know, your 20s and 30s are kind of like figuring out things and just trying to create boundaries in your life and really sort of just segment things out so that things don't run together. I kind of think of life as kind of like a plate of food. Like, sometimes things run together and it makes them better, but in general, I like things to be, like, divided out on the plate. Like, the green beans go over here, the sweet and sour goes over here. Like, everything is in its own place. And so I'd say the first piece of advice that I give, and I'm coming at you as an equal right now because I still haven't figured this shit out. That's one of my big stressors in my life, is that I work a lot, and I sometimes have trouble finding time to make things work with my personal life and things of that nature. In fact, a lot of the time I do. I cancel a lot of plans because of the channel and just work and just things that have to get done. And so anyways, first piece of advice that I've discovered is I would say that learn to segment each activity from one another. Don't let them bleed over. So, like, for example, if I'm scheduled to stream at this time, I stream at that time, and if I go a little bit over, that's cool, but I try to keep the schedule so that it doesn't bleed into other things. For example, I like to have Saturdays, Sundays off now. That's a big thing for me, is that I very much try to keep my weekends free of work. It doesn't work all the time, but I go out of my way to make sure that I just have a little bit of free time every week on the weekend. Those 2 days are what I've got, and I go for it. But one of the big things for me is making personal time. Just making sure that that personal time is there, and no matter what, nothing gets on top of that personal time. Like, that's it. When people try to schedule stuff, I say no. When they try to move shifts around or they try to get me to do extra things, I say, nah, that's my free time, and I need to have this so that I can detox and feel better. And I try to do that with every aspect of my life because I'm a bit of a control freak. I like things to be scheduled and in place, and it's helped me reduce the clutter in my life. I'm doing a lot better right now, and I'm a lot less stressed than I normally am. And that's been something that I just figured out over the last couple months. Aside from that, I would say just to take joy in what you do. Like, if something in your life does not bring you a lot of joy and it doesn't bring you financial benefit or it doesn't bring you some kind of actualization, I try to cut it out. So if it doesn't make me happy, it doesn't help me actualize, it doesn't bring me any sort of financial benefit, that right there is all sort of just like a black hole for me. Like, why am I going to waste my time on this activity? And I'll quit and I'll just push it out of my life real fast because it doesn't make me happy. It doesn't move my life forward, and financially it doesn't do anything for me. And that's strike 3 right there. I mean, if you really fundamentally try to condense activities down by whether or not they're worth your time, I think if you can't say yes to any of those three, then it may be time to think about getting rid of it altogether. But those are just the two little pieces of advice that I give. Don't get too stressed. Find joy in the little things. You know, sunshine on your face, kid smiles, things like that. Oh, you didn't say you had kids. You said you had a girlfriend. But yeah, definitely keep that segmented out. Make sure you get you time with your girlfriend. I'm about to have that this weekend. I'm actually leaving for a vacation this weekend. I haven't taken a vacation in like 4 years. And so made a little time this weekend. Girlfriend and I going to go out, not going to look at the cell phone. Just going to go out and enjoy life for a little bit and enjoy each other. I try to keep the job separate from the girlfriend, separate from, you know, the school or whatever, and sometimes it's not going to be available, but I promise you, eventually those activities will be done. Like school, for example, that has a finite cooldown. Like, it's going to be done one day, and it's just going to be gone from your life. And so I used to just kind of fantasize about what I was going to do with all that extra time, and it turned out that this channel is what I ended up doing with all that extra time once school was out. So anyways, just try to focus on the short term, be happy, segment your activities out, realize that some of those activities are not going to be around forever, so, you know, just muscle them out for right now, do the things you have to do so you can do the things you want to do. But don't let it go too far so that you're doing so many things to do what you want to do that you never get around to doing what you want to do. But I don't know if that was helpful. I hope it was. Just little things that have helped me along the way. Average Joey asks, hey Splat, how's it going? It's going pretty well. I'm feeling serene the last couple weeks. I've been very, very stressed with YouTube and just the channel and everything else. And so that's not the question, by the way. He's got a second half. But I've been feeling serene. I've been really trying to bring my stress levels down and just put myself in a state of degaff because I think I'm hyper-focusing on things too much. And while it does motivate me, I've been trying really, really hard to sort of take, I don't know, some sort of just like come what may attitude towards all of it. Hustle when I have to, and don't hustle when I don't have to, you know? I was wondering what you do when you're not recording. Also, I was wondering how you felt about, so let's do the first question first. When I'm not recording anything that you guys do, I clean the house, I mop, I vacuum, I go to the store, I buy things that I need for my house sundries so that I can eat and keep the kitties happy. Keep the girlfriend happy, keep the house stocked with paper towels and all that kind of mundane stuff. I pretty much do the same stuff that everybody does. I try to get a couple hours a night where I just hang out on, like, the PlayStation Network. Like, I find that hanging out on my PlayStation is, like, my teardown time. Like, it's where when I'm up on my computer, I feel like because I'm logged into Steam or I'm logged into Skype, I feel like people can hijack my time. Like, people that are in business, like my business associates and things like that, they don't care if it's like 1 in the morning. They're going to hit me up with a Skype call, and all of a sudden I'm going to be working at 1 in the morning when I didn't intend to. And so after I get done recording, I get done with my work every day, I try to just go out in the living room, I turn off all my social media devices, and I just play PlayStation for a couple hours, and that's worked out pretty well. That's one of the big things that I do. I get on my PS4 and I just detox. I watch movies and things like that with the girlfriend, hang out on the couch, spend time with the animals, play with them a little bit, keep them nice and fulfilled. Just the things that everybody does. Second question is, how do I feel about early access? Do you think that it helps the developers, or do you think that it's too easy for a developer to take advantage and abandon a game? You know, I think that Steam started out with Greenlight and things like that in kind of a very, very consumer-unfriendly place. And so, yes, it is the consumer's job to educate themselves about a product, but at the end of the day, there was no real refund system in place, and there was a very real hype machine in the media where sometimes they buff up games that are not that good, and then tons of people buy the game on that information, and then you can't get your money back, and it's just like, meh. I think early access is getting better. As with all things, it started out rough, and it's a community-driven thing that is now sort of, I'm sorry, it's a business-driven thing, and so it's in Steam's best interest to make this as middle ground as possible for both content providers and content consumers. And so I think they're getting closer to that middle ground. It's still easy to get cheated. It's still easy to really sort of, you know, make a bad purchase, even on, you know, good recommendations and things like that, because nowadays it's hard to trust people. But I think with their new refund policy and with things like that, you can burn a game down now pretty badly if it gets a lot of refunds and stuff. So I think it's getting better. It's better than it was a couple of years ago. I think that we had that initial surge of good indie games. After that, there was a deluge of shit games because people realized there was easy money to be made. And so now you had to have new constraints and new protections for consumers to keep, you know, that deluge of shitty games from ruining a good thing. Because I do think at the end of the day that early access is a good thing. It helps get games made that would not get made otherwise. And I think it's birthed a lot of really solid, fantastic games. And I think that if you get 10 fantastic games out of early access, it makes up for the thousands of shitty ones, so long as we can protect consumers as well and make sure that they aren't getting, you know, yoked by consumer-unfriendly policies like Steam used to have. As with all things, early access is being refined, it's getting cleaner over time, and, you know, you kind of got to wait it out. I think long-term it's going to be a good thing, though. Zaturtle asks, hey Splat, I was wondering, do you like turtles? Well, given the fact of the matter, I'm going to play to my audience right now and be like, hell yeah, I love turtles. Papa Nesto, greetings Splat, what is your beer of choice? Malt liquor. Malt liquor has always been my favorite since the beginning of time. I'll drink Mickey's, Colt 45, Steel Reserve, King Cobra, Doesn't really matter. I love malt liquor. Malt liquor is fantastic. It's one of my favorite things in the whole world. I don't know why I like it so much. Everybody else seems to really, really hate it, but that's what I came up on. Like, when I started drinking, that was what everybody around me drank, was malt liquor, so I drank malt liquor, and that's where my taste went to. When it comes to, like, throwaway shit beers, I'll drink just about anything. I'm not a beer elitist like that. If it comes to microbrews and things that I really, really like when I feel like spending a little bit of extra money, I like champagne. I like anything that Corbel makes. I really, sincerely, there's a lot of good champagnes out there. I'm not a big wine fan. Don't like red wines. White wines I can drink. I don't, like, love them, but I'll have one every now and again. When it comes to beers, I very much like Shock Top. I like Shock Top a lot. I like Fat Tire. And then on top of that, I like Guinness, but for whatever reason, Guinness always upsets my stomach. It's got something in it. I promise you, within like an hour of drinking a Guinness, I'll be in the toilet just like shitting myself inside out. And it's just, I don't know, there's something in there that like I'm apparently allergic to or something. I'm not really sure. Because it's like really, I drink one bottle of Guinness and oof, I'm going to be on the toilet for the rest of the day. It's brutal. I have no idea what they put in there, but I like it. Every now and again, I'll be like, well, it's time to be sick for the rest of the day. I'll drink a Guinness because I like them, but other than that, it's kind of the 3 beers that I like on top of there. I'll drink anything, though. Coors, Budweiser. I'll drink just about anything you put in front of me. Velvet Shadows asks, to what do you attribute your success on YouTube? What is it you feel you do differently and better than others that has led to your channel being fairly successful? Well, I actually don't think that I'm that successful on YouTube. I think I run kind of like a D+ channel. I really feel like my channel is kind of like an underground thing where like people know about it and it's like there. And if I was going to relate it to like hip hop or something, I kind of feel like I'm in the same place that somebody like Willie D or like Scarface would be in almost. And I don't know how else to relate that. Or for example, when it comes to like heavy metal, I would be kind of like one of those weird Euro bands that nobody's ever heard of, but like some people that are into the music have heard of it. Like, I really feel like I'm sort of underground. Like, I feel like people know about me, but I don't think I'm ever going to be like a multi-million subscriber channel. I don't think that I'm ever going to bring in like mass appeal or anything like that. I just try to be real on my channel, and I think that that sabotages me, but it's also the thing that people like about me is that I don't censor myself for all of you. I kind of like express my feelings in the things that I like, and if people don't mess with that, then they can mess with it elsewhere. And the people that do like it, they can hang around. I think that's like kind of the anchor around my neck, and at the same time, I think it's kind of the foundation that I stand upon. It's kind of an interesting situation. It's a thing that I think about a lot. And, you know, just being real, I think that, you know, where I've gotten to by being me. And I think that there's something real, and I think that there's something tangible there. And I could try and change things around, and I could try to be more like the mass appeal channels. Like, it's easy. I could totally do it. Like, I could throw a smile on my face every day and make googly eyes and kind of just have a face cam on everything and be like, whoa! Like, you know, I could do it, but that's not me. And so I just do me, and if people don't like me, then that's cool. They can bounce out elsewhere. And that's my channel in a nutshell. Mark Bernard asks, who are your favorite YouTube content creators, game-related or otherwise? I watch The Dice Tower. I watch Daz. I'll put a link for him down below. Those are pretty much the only 2 channels that I really watch very much. Occasionally, I'll binge out on really, really small YouTube channels because it's nice to see the energy from the little guys. Like, sometimes I'll watch channels like 200, 300 subscribers, and I'll just binge out on one of their series because if their quality's good enough and they just haven't made it to the big leagues or whatever, I don't know. It's nice to hear the enthusiasm. After a while, you do any job for long enough, you become cynical and sort of jaded and upset about it all the time. You should be like, well, why isn't this working? And every now and again, I feel like I vampire a little bit off the energy of other YouTubers, little guys that I watch. There's nobody specific, though. Like, there's no name. I just kind of, I'm transient like that. Like, I'll just go around and click in between channels. Kind of like when you click on random subs on Reddit. I'll just click on random channels, and I'll go down people's suggested things until I land on some random channel. And I'll just give them a bunch of likes and watch a bunch of their videos. But the 2 that I watch The Dice Tower. I watch a lot of stuff from Daz. Like, I frequently watch Daz. I watch him all the time just because he's a relaxing personality for me. He's an older YouTuber who's like 60 or in his late 50s. I think he said in one video. And so he's older, and he brings a calm persona that I kind of like. Other than that, I don't watch a lot of videos. I really sincerely don't. I don't have time. That's the big thing, is I very rarely... I watch Bob Ross videos. I watch Bob Ross Official all the time. I love watching that guy paint. But anyways, that's probably the 3 that I would say that I watch most consistently. But in general, I try to stay off YouTube. Once I'm like done with my work, I try to go do other things because I've found that YouTube like consumes my entire life if I spend all my time on it. And I'm trying to get away from that right now and be a little bit more healthy about it. Marco Magano says, as a fellow non-believer, I can't help but wonder... Did you have a hard time growing up in the middle of a religious family? Did they ever try to make you change your mind? Well, yeah, I think that's kind of the foundation of Christian doctrine. I was raised in the church, went to school 3 times. I'm sorry, I went to, you know, VBS, which is like school. It sucks. Basically, what VBS is instead of going to, like, you know how you have summer vacation? Instead of summer vacation, you have to go to Bible school all summer, and it just blows. It's the worst. Basically, you're nullifying your summer vacation and your friends in exchange for inferior schooling. And it's just the worst. And so anyways, I went to VBS. I went to church like 3 times a week. Every aspect of my life was religious. And so yeah, I'm not gonna say it was a hard time, like, yo, school eating the hard knocks, yo. Church almost destroyed me. It wasn't like that, but there was definitely like repression there, and there was definitely indoctrination, and there was definitely sort of this push to make me live inside this box that my parents had from a young age. You know, they expected me to be a pastor someday, and they expected me to be religious and all these sorts of things. And that was part of their growth process, because they were very, very, very religious, like really super religious, like the sort of religious that makes other religious people be like, damn. And so anyways, my parents were almost like on the border of Mennonites, and I've talked about this before, but it's sort of like they had prescribed notions for what they wanted me to be like. And I think that's part of the parenting process, because they didn't do that with my sister, who's much younger than me. I think that I was the oldest child. I was the first kid, and so they tried all the things that didn't work on me, and they reappraised their evaluation of what they expected from a child based on the way that all sort of exploded in their face when they did it with me, because I'm a stubborn human being. I get that from my mom and my dad. They're both stubborn. I get that from the both of them, and that sort of blew back on them in a way where I knew who I wanted to be as a human being, and I knew that I had an extensive religious education, like a very real religious education, my entire life up until the age of like 16 or 17. And so from a young age, I started nitpicking and just being like, that doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense. I don't like that. That makes no sense. Why would a benevolent God do this? You know, there's like random questions that you start throwing rocks, and the answer was never satisfying. It was always something like, oh, God knows, you know, like, well, only God knows the answer. God has his ways. Like these really sort of just like vacuous, amorphous, sort of like miasmatic answers that you couldn't really tangibly grab onto, and I just don't accept that. I don't have the mind for it. I think that, I forget, there was some scientist out there who said that I am made to be a non-believer or something like that. If he made me to be a non-believer or something along those lines, and I very much felt that there was truth to that. And you know, sometimes people need religion in their lives. I think a lot of people, it works for them. It doesn't work for me, and so don't take this as me denouncing your religion or trying to disprove it or anything like that. Some people need that in their lives. Some people, that's like a foundation in their life that if it was gone, their relational points would be messed up. I don't have that or need it. And so, you know, for the people that need it, that's cool. Do what you got to do. My parents did try to change my mind a lot. To get to the second half of your question, I think that there was a lot of sort of indoctrination there. They expected me to be a certain way. They did try to make me change my mind. I remember my mom crying for weeks when I said I wasn't religious. My dad was pretty upset about it, but honestly, my dad was more accepting about it than my mom was as a preacher. He was just like, well, you know, it's your life path and all that sort of thing. I don't agree with your decisions, but they're your decisions. My mom, on the other hand, fought kicking and screaming, because to her mind, me not being a believer now means that I'm not going to be in paradise someday. So to her as a mother, that's like the worst thought, and that's what she said. To her, that's the worst thing that she could ever fathomably think of, is that she's going to be separated from her children someday in paradise, and then I'm going to be like tortured and suffering somewhere in hell, you know, for all eternity, because she didn't mother well enough and didn't make me a Christian. And so, yeah, there was a lot of that. At the end of the day, I just told her, I was like, Mom, this is my decision based on the information that's been presented. It's not your fault. I've had a huge religious education, the likes of which most people will never and have never had. And so I have weighed these facts accordingly, or at least this, you know, doctrine accordingly. It didn't work for me. It is what it is. It's not your fault, Mom. You know? And so I think that gave me a brief reprieve. Every now and again, they invite me to go to church, but they let my beliefs be what they are at this point, and I respect them for that, and I appreciate it. It makes my life a lot easier, not constantly being preached at. They're definitely sort of like door knocker Christians where, you know, I think one of the fundamental precepts of Christianity is that you're supposed to go out and spread the good news. And so I get it. Like, this is kind of like their job as a religion, is to go and convince other people that this is the way. But for me, I don't know. Duck that bullet, I suppose. But yeah, to both of your answers, I think that kids that are in religious families, they either succumb to that indoctrination and they just like go with it. And I have friends that were in the same environment that I were, and they're super religious to this day. They're just like their parents were back in the day. And then there's the kids like me that went the complete opposite direction to the point of just wanting nothing to do with it. And so to both questions, I would say, yeah, you have a hard time. It's definitely going to test you. If you decide to be an atheist or whatever else, you're going to be tested a lot. You're going to be tested on a lot, so you got to know your shit. And then also, they will try to change your mind about it every chance that they get, unless they eventually just give up like my parents did. That's kind of a downer of a question. I don't know. I feel like I'm preaching at people and I'm bitching and moaning. I don't like that. I don't like that very much. The religious questions, it's hard to stay on safe ground with it because people are so vehement about religious stuff. that instantly you can see their eyebrows pop up whenever the conversation comes up, because they have these fundamentally held beliefs that cannot be. They're so deeply entrenched that it's a part of their being. And this goes for people on my side and people on the religious side. They have views that are so deeply just ingrained, like as part of their soul, that, you know, when challenged, their entire world is flipped upside down. I don't think a lot of people can do what I do. And I'd be like, well, your beliefs are your beliefs, mine are mine. I'm not going to convince you. You're not going to convince me. So let's just be amicable about it. And let's just not talk about it. Let's just be friends, and we'll just leave that part of our life off to the side. If I do something that you disagree with religiously, then let me know. And I'll do the best that I can, as long as it's something totally ridiculous, to acquiesce, and you'll keep our friendship going. Likewise, I'll try to do things like not swearing around you or not saying blasphemous things around you because I know it upsets you, because we have a friendship, you know? But other than that, I think religion's always kind of a slippery slope for me. And this doesn't go along with any question. It's just kind of like a caveat that I would follow with. In general, I try to avoid it, but it is a part of my life. And, you know, there's a kid out there right now that has a super religious family that makes them feel worthless, or makes them feel like they're not doing the things they're supposed to be doing, and really feels like they're being crushed into the boot at the moment. You know, just know other kids have gone through it. Myself, I was one of them, and so it ends. Someday you'll be an adult and you'll leave. I didn't talk to my parents for like 5 years after I moved out. When I was, you know, 18 and an adult, I was just like, ugh. Like, I was so done with their lifestyle. And then, you know, you mend fences and you make up after the fact, and things get better. And then eventually you have a relationship again. So that's life. This is our Q&A. Let me get off the soapbox here for a second. I will see you all later. Thank you for stopping on by. It's a series that I enjoyed doing. I know it's not like a huge crowd pleaser, but it's a thing that I like doing, so I'm going to keep on doing it. If you wanted to support the channel, I only do this on video logs, but if you wanted to support the channel, there is a Patreon page where you can donate to the channel, keep the lights on, help me keep on running. And if you wanted to support us through Loot Crate, you can do that, because I am a Loot Crate partner. Aside from that, leave me your questions down below. I will leave a comment that everybody can reply to keep it a little bit more organized down below when the video goes live, so that you can just respond to that, and I'll get your questions directly. You can ask on ask.fm, and you can find a link for that, I think, up on the Twitter. I'll post it tonight, and I will see you all later. Hi to everybody. Q&A accomplished.